Now we welcome you back to the news with John. Recently, we've had some developments about lumber. Here to tell you is our associate Sahib Bachchu in Brampton. Thanks, John. Lumber. It is harvested wood that is cut up into log for humans. One of the most important resources known to humans. We've been using lumber for over 500,000 years. We've used it for homes, flooring, infrastructure, boating, fishing rods, home improvements, and so much more. It is a good resource for durability, strength, and sustainability. Lumber has become a popular resource around the whole world, but some countries need it more than others. That's why we have international trade. International trade is the exchange of goods and services between two or more countries. There are many countries that are rich in lumber and have high exporting values. Some of these countries are Canada, Germany, the USA, Sweden, and China. And some of the biggest importers of lumber are China, Japan, the UK, the US, and Germany. Lumber can be used for so many things, but how is it produced? Well, large logs are put onto moving log carriers. From there, they are passed many times through a machine called the bandsaw. Then, in the secondary industries for lumber, is manufactured into frames for furniture, flooring, or any other kind of structural product. From there, it is shipped to different retail stores based on the product. Then the tertiary industry comes and sells all these products to the consumers. But where are the factories for lumber? Well, they're all over the world. They can be found in Russia, China, the US, etc. But more specifically, into Canada. The provinces that produce and manufacture lumber are British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, a little bit of Quebec, Nova Scotia, and more. These are all provinces with more diverse forests. So now that we've covered how lumber is made, where it comes from, and how it's used, the question is, how does it get here? Well, lumber is transported through a service called FTL. This stands for full truckload lumber. This allows lumber to travel a certain type of way that benefits it. It is wrapped around the truck so that it does not fall. It also lets the wood breathe. If the wood is closed off too much, it'll start to rot, so it's important for wood to get fresh air. Lumber is shipped around the world. It can be found and sold anywhere. Now, what's your economy forecast? As we all know, Canada is one of the biggest producers of lumber in the whole world. But how big is it really? Well, in 2023, lumber contributed 1.9% to the Canadian GDP, which dropped from the previous years, but still contributed $3.1 billion to the Canadian GDP. I could buy myself a house, a car, even a whole neighborhood with that. But seriously, for Canada to be generating this much money, they need a lot of people working for them. In 2022, there were 12,587 people working in the lumber industry. 4,072 of them being employers, and 8,515 of them being employees. In 2021, they got paid $31.01 per hour. These people helped a lot in Canada, because in 2022, lumber was worth 20% of Canada's international trades. This is one of their biggest industries. In 2021, Canada made $660.6 million off of exports and $396.3 million off imports. British Columbia stands alone when it comes to lumber production. In 2021, they have generated $1 billion for Canadian lumber. That's over 50% of Canadian lumber towards the Canadian GDP. Other provinces better step their game up. Other countries are still developing and lack the resources to build up their infrastructure. Countries around the world have been helping them. But in 2020, Canada has exported 67% of softwood to other countries to help them. Lumber helps a lot with international trade. But is it sustainable? Short answer, yes. Lumber is renewable because forests grow back throughout harvest season. In 2021, 4 billion hectares grew back. That's 2/3. 1/3 of them were gone 5,000 years ago. That's twice the size of the US. When we think about sustainability of lumber, we think about many issues like deforestation, diseases, natural disasters, climate change, invasive species, pollution, etc. There are so many diseases that can take over a tree. Some of these include the Dutch elm or cankers. These can grow and just take over the whole tree, just like invasive species. For example, the emerald ash borer. This bug can take over a tree and just kill it. Another thing that can affect trees are wildfires. There have been so many wildfires in Alberta this year. They've affected so many species, trees, and humans. Altogether in 2023, there have been 105,701 fires across Canada. Luckily, Canada's deforestation rate is 0.2% in 2023. This makes lumber sustainable because we're not losing it as much, but it's hard to buy. The prices have gone up because of COVID. The price right now is $540 USD for a stock, which is pretty expensive. Biodiversity loss can become a big problem in terms of the environment. When forest covers are removed, it affects species habitats, water supply, food, and migration routes. 80% of the world's species live in rainforests, meaning if deforestation were to occur, it would affect a lot of the Earth's biodiversity. One of the biggest issues is climate change. Factories release pollution when producing products. It also produces sound pollution, water pollution, and waste pollution. Lumber is sustainable. It's good for economy and good for business. But what are the challenges in the lumber industry? There are many challenges in the lumber industry, but one main one is competition. There are many big companies in lumber already. They have developed experience and developed teams. It will take a lot of determination and perseverance to overcome the challenges of starting your own business. There are lumber workers. They most probably have families to support. They only get paid $40,000 a year. With taxes, that's $34,000 per year. With food expenses, child education, rent, and more, that will be a hard task to accomplish. Workers can also develop side effects from working in sawdust conditions and around rough edges. They can get dermatitis, which is a skin condition. They can also get red eyes or itchy nose. But there could also be more severe conditions, like altercations with the lungs. When you inhale sawdust, you inhale small sawdust particles. These can get into your lungs and damage and scar your lung tissues. If exposed repeatedly, it can cause allergies. When we talked about prices earlier, I never explained why they were so high. So here goes nothing. During COVID, there were a lot of home improvement projects as well as moving. In order to do this, you need lumber. So lumber became of high demand to a lot of people so they could fulfill their dream kitchens or dream houses. The problem was, lumber industry could not keep up with this high demand. And on top of that, the Federal Reserve System, raised its interest rates. This started to slow down the whole economy as prices for lumber got more expensive. As COVID started to go away and the real estate market started to cool down, the demand for lumber was starting to go down as well. But there will still be struggle for demand in the future. This just sums up in a perfect example of supply and demand. What if lumber will still be useful in our future? If we didn't have it, we wouldn't have half of the stuff we have today. But we can always develop something more, so it benefits us more. Researchers at the University of Maryland are working to develop something called transparent wood. It is almost as clear as glass, but with more strength and better insulation features. They are also developing 3D printed wood. There is a company called Desktop Metal that has released a program called Forest. It is a new process that reuses cellulose dust and lignin, two main parts of wood. They get this waste from wood and paper industries. They produce high-end custom fiberwood-based products by rematerializing different parts of the waste. They can make home decor, interiors, transportation, and more. And the best thing is, drumroll please, it has a lower carbon footprint. It is also time and cost effective, which means it saves our environment and our time. I think we all now know that lumber is useful, but it could be replaced by mass timber. It has become more popular and more people are trying to use it instead of lumber. According to Offside Builders magazine, Woodworks has reported over 1,400 mass timber buildings completed, along with several other projects. Overall, I feel like the lumber industry is very necessary industry, not just for Canada, but for the human race. Back to you, John. Overall, I feel like that we have learned a lot more information about the lumber industry. Thanks again, Sahib. Stay tuned for tomorrow's news. And this is John on the news.